In 1944, a woman met Hitler proposing something extreme. Even the Nazis hadn't attempted this daring plan. A squadron of suicide pilots crashing planes into Allied targets. But she wasn't just a fanatic before the Führer. She was one of Germany's most celebrated aviators, setting over 40 world records. And she volunteered for the mission herself. Her name was Hannah Reitsch, and her most terrifying story isn't what she did during the war. It's what she said after it was over. Hannah Reitsch was born on March 29, 1912, in Hirschberg, Silesia, a small town nestled against the mountains of what was then Eastern Germany. From childhood, she was obsessed with flight, not casually interested, consumed by it. She dreamed of soaring over those peaks, and by her 20s, she was doing exactly that. She became one of the most accomplished glider pilots in Europe, setting record after record. More than 40 world records across gliding, powered flight, and helicopter categories. In a field dominated entirely by men, she wasn't just competing, she was winning. But here's what most retellings leave out. Every achievement Reitsch earned was immediately conscripted into propaganda. The regime didn't just tolerate her, it showcased her. She appeared at rallies, in newsreels, in magazines. The Nazis held her up as living proof that German excellence extended even into the skies, and she wasn't resisting any of this. She wasn't flying despite the Nazis. She was flying for them, and she knew it. On March 28, 1941, Adolf Hitler personally presented her with the Iron Cross Second Class for her work test flying Stuka dive bombers and developing techniques to cut barrage balloon cables. She later became the only woman in German history to receive the Iron Cross First Class. Awarded after a near-fatal crash that should have ended her career. Instead, it cemented her legend. And here's a detail that makes her story even more unsettling. Reitsch was never a member of the Nazi Party. She never held a party card, never joined any official Nazi organization. Her devotion wasn't institutional, it was personal. She didn't need a membership to be a true believer. She just was one down to her bones. The regime rewarded loyalty with increasingly lethal assignments, and Reitsch accepted every single one. In 1943, she was asked to test fly the Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet, a rocket-powered interceptor unlike anything that had ever been built. It wasn't really an airplane in any traditional sense. It was a wooden glider strapped to a liquid-fueled rocket engine that could reach speeds above 900 kilometers per hour. The thing was as likely to explode on the runway as it was to fly. Reitsch climbed in anyway. During one test flight, the landing skid failed to deploy. The aircraft slammed into the ground at high speed. She suffered multiple skull fractures, a crushed jaw, and severe facial injuries that required months of reconstructive surgery. Doctors weren't sure she would survive. She spent 5 months recovering in a hospital bed, and the moment she could walk again, she went back to flying. Then came something worse. The V-1 flying bomb, the weapon the British called the buzz bomb, was a pulse jet cruise missile designed to terrorize London. It carried nearly a ton of explosives and was never designed to carry a human being. But the early models had guidance problems. They kept missing their targets. So someone had the idea to put a pilot inside one, and Reitsch volunteered to test it. The cockpit, if you could even call it that, was bolted onto the fuselage of a weapon. It was cramped, deafening, and vibrated so violently that it was physically exhausting. Just to stay conscious, Reitsch flew it anyway, multiple times. Her test data helped. Engineers refined the guidance and control systems of a weapon aimed directly at civilian neighborhoods. She wasn't an unwitting cog in a machine. She understood exactly what the V-1 was for, and she helped make it more accurate. But testing weapons wasn't enough for her. She wanted something far worse. On February 28, 1944, Reitsch traveled to Berchtesgaden and personally presented Adolf Hitler with a proposal she called Operation Suicide. The concept was simple and horrifying. volunteer pilots would fly explosive-laden aircraft directly into Allied targets, destroying themselves in the process. Europe's own kamikaze program. Hitler was initially hesitant, but Reitsch pressed. She helped recruit roughly 70 volunteers willing to die for the mission, and she played a direct role in training pilots on the F-1103R Reichenberg, a manned version of the V-1 flying bomb. Between 70 and 175 of these manned missiles were actually built. Unit was formed, the Leonidas Squadron, named after the Spartan king who died holding the pass at Thermopylae. The symbolism was deliberate. These men were expected to die. The exact origin of the suicide pilot concept is debated by historians. Some attribute it primarily to Otto Skorzeny or Hajo Hermann, but Reitsch's advocacy and her technical role in making the program operational are well documented. She didn't just propose the idea, she helped build the infrastructure to carry it out. And she volunteered herself for the first mission. The Leonidas Squadron was never deployed operationally. The war's shifting priorities and Allied advances overtook the program before it could be used. But the fact remains, Reitsch spent months of her life working to create a system where young German pilots would be sent to certain death inside flying bombs. So she built weapons, proposed suicide missions, and risked her own life repeatedly for the regime. But none of that compares to what she did when the war was already lost. April 26, 1945. The war is over in everything but name. Soviet artillery is leveling Berlin block by block. The streets are cratered ruins. The sky above the city is a wall of anti-aircraft fire so dense that no sane pilot would attempt to fly through it. But Hannah Reitsch is not interested in sanity. She is interested in devotion. She volunteers to fly General Robert Ritter von Greim into Berlin. Von Greim is her close companion and, according to multiple biographical accounts, likely her lover. Hitler has summoned him to the capital for a promotion that borders on absurdity, command of the Luftwaffe, an air force that barely exists anymore. Reitsch knows this. She flies anyway. They take off in a Fiesler Storch, a light reconnaissance plane with no armor and no weapons. As they approach Berlin at low altitude, Soviet anti-aircraft fire rips through the fuselage.
Shrapnel shatters von Greim, foot.
He slumps forward over the controls, bleeding heavily. Reitsch reaches past him from behind, grabs the stick and lands the plane on a shell-crated stretch of road near the Brandenburg Gate. They spend 2 days in the bunker.
Hitler promotes von Greim to Generalfeldmarschall.
He gives both Reitsch and von Greim cyanide capsules. A gift in his mind. Reitsch also tried to convince Magda Goebbels to let her take the Goebbels children out of the bunker to safety. Magda refused. Tragically, the children would perish their days later from their mother's poisoning. Afterward, Hitler instructed Reich and von Grimm to depart. On April 29th, she departed in an Arado, our trainer aircraft. She utilized the Charlottenburger Chaussee as an impromptu launch strip. Russian anti-aircraft fire engulfed the airspace around her. She navigated through it, successfully evading the city. This action stemmed not from orders, but from deep conviction. She flew into a city on the brink of collapse, not because she was commanded to, but because she felt unable to be anywhere else. Furthermore, her statements about leaving that fortified shelter reveal her true identity. During her debriefing by American captors, Reich characterized her departure from Berlin not as a fortunate escape, but as a lamentable event. She termed it the most sorrowful day of her existence, as she and von Grimm were unable to perish alongside Hitler. She described the bunker as a hallowed site of the fatherland, a sacred location where Germans ought to express devotion and prayer. These declarations were not coerced under duress. She conveyed them with openness and fervor to interrogators who found her words astonishing. Von Greim would opt to use his cyanide capsule. Following his apprehension by American forces, he ended his own life on May 24, 1945. Reich, however, retained hers. She kept that tiny glass vial for numerous years, indeed for decades. This was not a case of Stockholm Syndrome. It was not a woman compelled by dread or ensnared by circumstances. She had ample chances to disassociate from the regime after 1945, yet she chose unwavering loyalty instead. And what she was aware of makes that loyalty considerably more difficult to pardon. At some point during the war, Reich acknowledged encountering a publication in Stockholm that detailed the gas chambers. It plainly articulated the atrocities being inflicted upon Jewish people throughout occupied Europe. Her reaction was neither one of shock nor denial. She approached Heinrich Himmler, the mastermind of the camp infrastructure, and informed him that he needed to refute the allegations, rather than investigate them, confront them, or manage public perception. Himmler dismissed it as adversarial disinformation, and Reich accepted that narrative without further objection. Scholars still ponder the extent of her genuine comprehension versus how much she deliberately chose to disregard. Nevertheless, the pamphlet incident negates any assertion of ignorance. She observed proof of genocide, and her initial impulse was to safeguard the regime's image, not to challenge the regime itself. During the war's concluding days, the regime Reich served decimated everything, including her own family members. On May 3, 1945, as Soviet troops advanced through Silesia, her father made a choice driven by extreme fear and hopelessness. He murdered Reich's mother, Emmy, her sister, Heidi, and Heidi's 3 young offspring. Subsequently, he took his own life. He opted for utter destruction rather than Soviet domination or the displacement and disgrace he anticipated. An entire lineage of Reich's family was annihilated within a single afternoon due to the fear and fanaticism the regime had fostered for 12 years. Such details serve to humanize a narrative without absolving responsibility. Reich experienced the loss of nearly all her relatives. The ideology she championed led to the destruction of her own household. However, what is remarkable and unsettling is this: it did not alter her convictions. Neither then nor at any point afterward. Because following all of that, the combat missions, the bunker, the suicide attempts, the annihilation of her family, she gained her freedom. American forces apprehended Reich after the conflict and held her for approximately 15 to 18 months. Allied intelligence extensively debriefed her, not as a war criminal but as a technical informant. They sought confirmation of Hitler's death in the bunker, desiring specifics on German armaments, rocket science, and aeronautical engineering. She was valuable to them, and valuable individuals seldom face prosecution. Once the interrogations concluded, they set her free. No charges were filed, no trial was held, and no denazification penalty was imposed beyond the standard procedures undergone by millions of Germans. She had never been affiliated with the Nazi Party, simplifying her case administratively. She was simply identified as a pilot, a civilian test pilot who had contributed to her nation. Consequently, she seamlessly reintegrated into society. What transpired next is almost unbelievable. Reich reestablished her aviation career as if the preceding decade had merely been a brief pause. In 1952, she participated in the World Gliding Championships in Spain, securing a third-place finish. By 1955, she had attained the title of German gliding champion. In 1959, Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru personally extended an invitation for her to assist in establishing a national gliding facility. On May 4, 1961, she was received at the White House by President John F. Kennedy, reportedly as part of a delegation from the Association of Women Helicopter Pilots. The same woman who had flown into Hitler's bunker 16 years prior now stood within the Oval Office. From 1962 through 1966, she established and managed a national gliding school in Ghana with financial backing from the West German Foreign Office. She developed a close rapport with Kwame Nkrumah, another leader whose authoritarian inclinations she either overlooked or failed to perceive, perpetuating a pattern that characterized her entire life. She continued setting new records into the 1970s, including women's out and return world records along the Appalachian Ridges in the United States. Throughout all these accomplishments, every handshake, every award, every new nation that welcomed her, her resolve never faltered. During the 1970s, photojournalist Ron Leitner conducted an interview with her. She candidly stated that she felt no shame in affirming her continued belief in National Socialism. She mentioned that she still wore the Iron Cross adorned with diamonds, an award bestowed upon her by Hitler. And then she uttered something that eliminates all potential justifications. They do not explain the genuine culpability we share, which is our defeat, not the Holocaust nor the millions of fatalities. The fault, in her perception, lay in losing the war. Hannah Reitsch passed away on August 24, 1979, in Frankfurt am Main. The officially stated cause was a cardiac arrest. She was 67 years of age. However, in that same month, British test pilot Eric Brown, who had known Reitsch since before the war and interviewed her afterward, received a communication from her. The two had maintained a complex relationship spanning several decades. The letter offered reflections on aviation, past experiences, and the sky. It concluded with a single German phrase: "It began in the bunker, there it shall end." Brown was aware that she had kept the cyanide capsule given to her by Hitler in April 1945. He publicly theorized that she might have finally fulfilled a suicide pact made with von Grimm, albeit 3 decades later. Von Grimm had utilized his capsule immediately following his capture. Reich, conversely, had prolonged her decision. No autopsy report has ever come to light, or at least none is publicly accessible. The cyanide pill was not discovered among her possessions. Regardless of whether she ingested it or not, the ambiguity is fitting. A woman who dedicated her entire existence to a cause she never questioned, whose ultimate action remains unknown. She rests in the communal cemetery in Salzburg, Austria, situated mere steps from the grave of Robert Ritter von Grimm. Hannah Reitsch was not a casualty of the regime. She was one of its most fervent adherents, and the world allowed her to resume her life. Thank you for viewing History Hangover. If you found this video informative, please explore our other in-depth analyses of the less discussed consequences of World War II. Like this video, subscribe, and activate notifications to ensure you don't miss our upcoming content.